What up, everyone? This is Chris Hitchell here, and welcome to a video where I'm going to be reviewing three movies in a video I like to call Oscar Rush. As that title suggests, I'm going to be reviewing movies that have gotten Academy Award consideration. Two out of the three movies I'm going to be reviewing were actually nominated for Best Picture. If you ask me, all three of them should have been nominated, but I'll get into that later. So with the Oscar nominations, before the actual official nominees for Best Picture came out, I had seen two of the movies that had got nominated, which were Dunkirk and Get Out. That was obvious Dunkirk was going to get nominated, but Get Out getting nominated, I mean, holy shit. That's a complete game changer right there. So that's pretty amazing. Dunkirk, I wasn't the biggest fan of, but it was obvious it was going to get nominated. But when it comes to these three movies, all of them definitely worthy of Oscar consideration. But let's go ahead and about the ins and outs of each movie, starting with our first movie, which is Three Billboards. Specifically, the title is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Now, I absolutely love that title. I mean, that's an absolute no bullshit title, as big as a no bullshit title I've ever seen. And this is definitely a no bullshit movie when it comes to the subject matter. Just because it's the story, it's relevant for what's going on in Hollywood right now with all the sexual assault allegations. But really, this movie, it's a really effective yet simple story. For those of you who don't know, it's a movie about a woman who rents three billboards in Missouri, and she uses these billboards to bring up, to sort of remind the officers of that community about a rape case that's going on about her daughter who was raped. Yet the officers seem to be slacking off and not really doing their job as she thinks they are, and that raises a whole bunch of controversy throughout the town. Like I said, this is a very simple yet powerful and very well done story. I mean, I absolutely loved following the ins and outs of what this movie was trying to tell. And it's led by just a great performance by Frances McDormand. She just gives a powerhouse performance at this hard nosed woman who's really determined to put these cops in her place. Yet we do see why she is so driven, and she was a good character to follow, even though you do see that she's a little on edge. But of course, I mean, you'd be really effective if your daughter was raped. So I thought that was a really good character, also. And good supporting performances by Woody Harrelson. He plays a cop and he does a really good job. The cop he plays the main cop who she's trying to convince to do his job. But the biggest surprise of the movie came from Sam Rockwell. Not that he's not a great actor, of course he is, but just that character, man. It was a really interesting character to follow. I'm not going to spoil exactly what goes on with him, but I thought just sort of the journey his character goes on was really cool. He plays a guy he's really pretty much the main comic relief in the movie. He just plays this really sort of asshole of a cop. But the journey that he goes on was very interesting also, and that was probably one of the more effective parts of the movie. And just the movie is just really good at what it's trying to do, really showing how this whole situation is affecting everyone, not just the mother whose daughter was raped, but just the whole community, what people think of her. And you can sort of see both sides of everything, even though, of course, you want to root with Frances McDormand's character. But the movie just does really great stuff with the story, and I definitely really enjoyed it. My only complaints were just some weird humor here and there, notably weird humor involving an older guy who was dating a younger woman. That was interesting. Not all of the humor really worked. It was sort of kind of awkward. And just some stuff towards the end that I'm not going to spoil. Some developments did seem really weird, but at the end, you still go with it, and it's all just a part of a really good movie. I'm going to end up giving it a 9 out of 10. This is the movie that's getting the most consideration, or is pretty much the favorite to win Best Picture. And if it does, it gets the Chris seal of approval just because I did think this was a really effective story, and the movie is just good with mostly everything it's trying to do. So that brings us to our next movie, I, Tonya, starring Margot Robbie. Now, unfortunately, I said two out of the three movies I'm going to be talking about got nominated for Best Picture. Unfortunately, this is the one that was not. It was not nominated for Best Picture. It only got a Best Actress nomination for Margot Robbie. Definitely deserving, but it's just a shame that this movie couldn't get a Best Picture nod also. Just because, well, just talking about this movie, for me, Now this movie was a history lesson for me. I was not aware of the story of Tanya Harding. I mean, y'all give me a break. The story happened a year before I was actually born, 1994. I was born in 1995, so I didn't know the whole ins and outs of the story. So this was sort of a new story for me to witness. But I was really drawn to the movie just because well, the reason I wanted to see it was because I love Margot Robbie. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, if you got a dick, you definitely love Margot Robbie. But she's definitely a really great actress, so it's always good to see her in a movie. And just the vibe that this movie had, sort of this comedic dark humor vibe, yet telling an actual like a being a biographical piece, I thought was really interesting. And the movie definitely delivered on that tone that the trailers promised, as well as having just being a good history lesson, as the movie well should be, and it actually is. The movie just has a really great energy going it, thanks to that tone and the humor it's got through it. It's got some. It's really interesting the way it's written, and it's really helped by just the performances from the three leads. I mean, Margot Robbie, she's always great. She's great as um, Tonya Harding. Even though when you look at pictures of Tonya Harding, a younger Amy Adams would have been perfect for this role just because she looks exactly like her if you look at pictures side to side. But Robbie, she was still really good. I love the energy she brought to the role. She's the reason main reason the movie is so much fun. So she was great. Sebastian Stan, who plays her boyfriend, that was a really interesting character. He did a good job also. But what a big time performance from Allison Janney, who plays her mother. Holy shit, man. That character was really something else. She was probably the biggest comedy relief in the movie. Yet she has some moments where she is a hard nosed, sarcastic, just like, oh, just a bitch of a woman, but one that was really fun to watch. So I definitely love that. And following the whole story of Tanya Harding was good to witness, just sort of the ups and downs of her life. I'm not exactly sure how accurate it is, but hey, for what the movie was, it definitely was enjoyable. My main complaint is when it gets to when the movie actually does start to focus on the incident of her breaking Nancy Kerrigan's leg getting kneecap getting broken. Now the movie like, before the movie gets to that point, it's focusing a lot on Tanya Harding's story as it should, her rise, sort of how she came to be, how she got to be the prominent figure in ice skating, her training and all that. That was great stuff. That was actually my favorite part of the movie. My problem is that when it shifts the focus to the incident with Nancy Kerrigan, the movie sort of takes the focus off of Harding and focuses on sort of the characters who are really responsible for the Kerrigan incident. And while it's not bad, it's not as good. It's not the movie's just not as focused or as good as it originally was when it was focused on Harding. So that was sort of a shame, just because I thought that when the movie was focusing on Harding, that story that was the best part. When it got to the incident, that's when it sort of lost its steam. Even though it definitely wasn't bad, and you definitely did get to see a lot of Harding in there, wasn't as good as it originally was. But ultimately, the movie definitely does work a whole lot. I really did enjoy it. Without spoiling things for you, the final shot of the movie really cemented to me just what a sad story it is. If you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the final shot, sort of the juxtapositions of shots, was so damn good and was just part of a movie I definitely really enjoyed. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. Definitely a great movie. It's a shame it didn't get nominated for Best Picture. I mean, I haven't seen all the movies that were nominated for Best Picture, so was it worthy of getting it? Who knows? All I know is that this was a movie that was definitely a really fun watch, and at least it got a good actress nomination for Robbie. So on to the last movie we're going to talk about, and that is The Shape of Water. The weirdest and by far the most interesting movie we're going to talk about right here. Now, this movie, it was getting a whole lot of buzz. People just telling about, oh, what a weird, just but yet cool movie this was. And one of the things I heard about this movie was that the general idea for it was, if you're familiar with the Hellboy movies, what this movie was pitched to me as was or the idea of it was like a weird Abe Sapien fan fiction. Abe Sapien, that blue fish guy from the Hellboy movies. This was Guillermo del Toro's sort of fan fiction and story idea for that character. And what's interesting is that this movie, the creature, I did not see the creature going into it, And when you see that creature, it's pretty much Abe Sapien, man. It is that dude from Hellboy, just a little more detailed, but just a little more even weirder detail going on to him. But it's pretty much Abe Sapien. It's probably it looks like his brother on meth or something like that. So that was really weird when you first see that creature. But this movie, just the general plot of it, it's a story about sort of a female janitor who falls in love with this blue weird sea water creature that these people Americans got cooped up in a lab, and that's basically all you need to go through from there. And the movie's got a lot of elements that do work for it, even though it is really weird. And I did have some problems with this movie, but elements that it's got working for it are one, the direction is really great. Del Toro, he's a master of creatures. And while this movie is not creature crazy like a lot of his movies are, like Hellboy or Pan's Labyrinth, it's still the creature that he's got going here, this Abe Sapien ripoff, if you want to call it, still is a really cool creature to look at when it comes to that. And just the way the movie's directed, sort of the color palette they went with, sort of the energy it's got going for it was really good. So that was good. The performances are really solid. The main one coming from Sally Hawkins, who plays this mute janitor. I mean, it's sort of it is you do have to admire someone taking this role where you're mute the entire film, but you do still have to convey that emotion through your actions, your facial expressions, and just your body language. And she does a really good job. This is a really weird character who I did have complaints with, but just the performance itself was really good, and the supporting performances were really good. Octavia Spencer was always great, and Michael Shannon was just fantastic in this. I love this. I mean, this is his best villain. Well, his main thing I know him from was Man of Steel, but he plays another great villain in this movie. Man, he's sort of the guy who's overseeing the whole operation of taking care of this creature, and he did a great job. So I loved him. And the final elements that the movie had some great tension going for it in terms of you know that this romance it's not in the best interest of everyone for this thing to go through, but so the movie's got some good tension when that stuff sort of builds up throughout the movie. My biggest complaint is that the decisions the main character makes. um this is a movie where one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is when it's hard to root for a character just because that character makes really dumb decisions, or just sort of decisions where you're like, what? Because the problem is that I don't that it's just hard to root for a character when she's sort of mucking and sort of messing things up for no reason. Yes, she's falling in love with this creature, but she's sort of messing up the livelihoods of everyone involved in this operation just because she's sort of being selfish. I mean, it's the whole thing is bigger than just her and this creature. Yet she sort of goes and disturbs the whole balance of how things are going off, and really effing with what Michael Shannon's character is supposed to be and supposed to do. And even though he's the main villain in this movie, you do sort of look at things and go like, well, I can sort of understand why he's coming from. He's got a job to do, and he can't really. And I would sort of be mad too if some person who's just fallen in love is sort of illegally messing with this whole operation. So that was kind of unfortunate. That's sort of something that kept me sort of kind of going like, especially towards the beginning part of the movie. I just thought the main character was making some just really weird decisions, even though for no reason. But the big crux of this movie is sort of that romantic relationship that builds through. And yeah, as some of the imagery that you'll see from the posters, it really comes to a fold, and you'll either go with it or you won't. I know the audience that I was with was kind of going, had some interesting reactions once the romance starts to build up. But you know, for this story, it definitely does work. And one of the things I absolutely loved was some of the artistry that came later on. I mean, some of that stuff when you see in the posters is really good, but just some of the shots and just some of the imagery that comes along with this romance were pretty effective. And one of the things that I actually absolutely love when a movie can do is invoke that sense of old Hollywood, classic Hollywood, those films from the 40s and 50s, just because I love films like that. It's one of the things I loved about La La Land. This movie definitely does do that in a good way, and in some ways that are subtle and some ways that are pretty obvious. One scene in particular, but I still really enjoyed that. So ultimately, this was a movie that definitely did really work and was a good experience. Had some good, even though it is weird. definitely really weird. And even though I didn't like some of the decisions that the characters made, the whole thing did come together in a nice artistic way, and that's the main thing. Good artistry going for the movie, yeah, and still a pretty solid romance still. So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. That might seem low for some of the other reviews that people are giving this movie, just praising it as one of the top two contenders for Best Picture. But hey, 8 out of 10 is definitely a good movie. I enjoyed it. So yeah, there you go with this Oscar rush. These three reviews, man. Saw these movies all within the past week, and I definitely wanted to get my money's worth putting a review out for them. So I hope you all enjoyed this Oscar rush. There's a few more movies that have gotten Best Picture that I definitely do want to see, like Darkest Hour, and I'll probably check out The Post, even though I'm a little less excited to see that now. If you ask me, just the final point I'm making this video, it seems like the top two contenders for Best Picture is going to come down between three billboards and what's the movie called? Shape of Water. Fuck, I just saw the movie. I just talked about it. Sorry about that. Those seem to be the top two contenders, but it does seem like three billboards is going to win. And as I mentioned earlier, if it does, gets the Chris seal of approval just because I really did enjoy that movie. And I'm looking forward to some of the other movies I'm going to see, specifically Darkest Hour. So, anyways, hope you all enjoyed these reviews. Leave your comments if you've seen these movies, and I'll see y'all around with another video.